Mike Tyson, the former heavyweight champion of the world, was driving through a small town in his black SUV. The evening sun cast a golden glow over the sleepy streets, and its warmth masked the tension that was soon to arise. Tyson, dressed in a sweatshirt and jeans, decided to stop at a roadside diner for a quick bite to eat. He had hoped to enjoy a moment of quiet anonymity, but fate had other plans. The parking lot of the diner was filled with motorcycles and a group of rowdy men. They were members of a local biker gang known as the Iron Wolves. At the center of the group stood Vulture, their stocky leader with a scar on his face. The gang's crude jokes and loud laughter were interrupted when Tyson stepped out of his SUV. Vulture's gaze stopped on him, and a smirk appeared on his face. "Look at that guy," Vulture said mockingly with contempt in his voice. "Thinks he's too good for a motorcycle." The gang members chuckled and exchanged knowing glances. Their laughter was a thin veil for the malice that lurked beneath their stern exterior. To them, Tyson was an outsider who dared to invade their territory. Mistaking his calm demeanor for weakness, they paid no attention to the storm they were about to unleash. Tyson ignored their taunts and headed toward the diner, his face calm but his thoughts racing. He couldn't help but notice the stares and snide remarks that followed him. Sitting down at the window, he ordered a burger and looked around the parking lot, keeping his eyes on the gang. His thoughts were busy pondering how far he'd come and the battles he'd fought both in and out of the ring. Despite his outward equanimity, some part of him remained coiled like a spring, ready to act if the need arose. Outside, the Iron Wolves continued their taunts, their confidence bolstered by quantity and cheap beer. Vulture's eyes flashed with anger when he spotted Tyson's SUV parked among the motorcycles. "He thinks he can just park his fancy car next to our motorcycles," roared Vulture. Roared the Vulture. Roared the Vulture. "Let's teach him some respect." Snake, one of the gang members, entered the diner with a brash gait. His slicked back hair and sinister grin gave him a menacing appearance. He approached Tyson's table, a chuckle audible in his voice. "Hey, buddy, that's a nice car you got there. I should probably move it before it gets scratched." Tyson's calm gaze met Snake's mocking face. "Don't cause trouble," he said, his voice flat and firm. Snake leaned closer, his grin growing even wider. "Who said anything about trouble? Just friendly advice." The tension in the diner was palpable. A young waitress intervened, her voice firm despite her nervousness. "Leave him alone. He's not bothering anyone." Snake gave her a venomous look, but eventually backed off, muttering curses to himself. Tyson finished his meal and headed for the exit, knowing full well that the gang was hostile. When he got outside, the gang surrounded him, masks of aggression frozen on their faces. "We thought you might want to spend some time with us," Vulture said, his smirk a parody of friendliness. Tyson's voice remained calm. "I don't want any trouble. Let me go, and we'll forget this ever happened." The gang broke into laughter, their confidence bolstered by their numbers. Vulture stepped closer and jabbed a finger at Tyson's chest. "You're going to regret coming here." The first blow followed without warning. Tyson jerked like a coiled spring, and his fist slammed into Snake's jaw. The crack of bones echoed through the precinct as Snake collapsed to the ground. The rest of the gang froze for a moment, their bravado replaced by shock. Then, like a pack of wolves, they lunged at Tyson. What followed was a display of tremendous strength and precision. Tyson's movements were a symphony of destruction honed by years in the ring. The gang members' initial bravado was quickly replaced by panic as they realized the magnitude of their mistake. Their faces contorted with fear and pain as Tyson's punches rained down on them with thunderous force. Some hesitated, their confidence shaken. Others tried desperate, clumsy lunges but received crushing back blows. One man fell backward, grabbing his ribs and gasping for breath, while another collapsed to the ground with a shocked expression on his face. The parking lot turned into a battlefield strewn with groans and shattered egos, the gang's unity disintegrating with each precise blow. Each blow was a thunderous roll, each feint a masterful lunge. Moments later, two more gang members lay unconscious, their bodies strewn across the sidewalk. Vulture, enraged and desperate, pulled a heavy chain from his pocket. Another gang member held a baseball bat, and his grip grew tighter as he advanced. The gang surrounded Tyson, their weapons glinting menacingly in the fading light. "You made a big mistake, tough guy," Vulture growled, waving his chain. Tyson's unperturbed gaze changed, replaced by cold fury. He dodged the chain with ease and delivered a bone-crushing uppercut to Vulture's ribs. The chain fell to the ground and Vulture fell backward, panting. Another gang member swung his bat, but Tyson dodged it with a vicious blow to the temple. Desperation made Vulture pull out a knife. He lunged at Tyson, but the boxer's reflexes were faster. Tyson disarmed him in a swift motion, sending the knife flying across the pavement. He pinned Vulture to the ground and slammed his knee into the gang leader's chest. "You can't treat people like that," Tyson said, his voice cold and determined. "Not here. Nowhere." Sirens howled in the distance. It was the sheriff and his deputies arriving. The gang members, beaten and defeated, were handcuffed and loaded into police cars. The sheriff, an older man with sharp eyes, surveyed the scene and approached Tyson. "Looks like you taught them a lesson," he said with a chuckle, extending his hand. Tyson shook it firmly. They needed it. As the gang was led away, the townspeople left the diner, applauding Tyson's bravery. He nodded his thanks and climbed into his SUV. The applause died down as he drove away, and night once again engulfed the small town. Left alone on the road, Tyson thought about what had happened. The battle replayed over and over in his mind, a testament to the strength and resilience that had defined his life. "Sometimes you gotta get up," he murmured, his voice quiet but determined, "even if it's not your battle." That night, the small town that the Iron Wolves had once terrorized found peace, and as Tyson disappeared over the horizon, his legend grew, becoming a reminder that justice can be served both in and out of the ring. But the night wasn't over yet. The Iron Wolves had connections that went deeper than Tyson realized. After learning what had happened, they had gathered in a shady warehouse on the outskirts of town. The leader of the Wolves, a ruthless man named Razor, was informed of Vulture's defeat. Razor, known for his ruthlessness and strategic mind, decided that this defeat would not go unanswered. Razor summoned a corrupt detective named Harlan, who had long been entrenched in the underworld where Razor had weaponized. Harlan was a greasy, conniving figure with a reputation for being able to bend the law to his will for the right price. Razor trusted him implicitly, knowing that the detective's vast network of informants could track down anyone, anywhere. In Razor's opinion, this wasn't just about revenge. He wanted to reestablish his dominance and send a message to anyone who dared challenge the Iron Wolves. Harlan, with his sly grin and unwavering confidence, had not hesitated to accept the assignment, wanting the favor and a large sum of money. The detective, a fat man named Harlan, accepted the assignment with a sly grin, knowing that Razor would pay generously for the information. Meanwhile, Tyson stayed the night in a motel, unaware of the storm that had erupted around him. The next morning, Tyson's peaceful breakfast was interrupted by the sound of motorcycles roaring into the motel parking lot. The sun was barely up, casting long shadows on the cracked asphalt. The smell of diesel fuel and dust lingered in the air, intensifying the ominous atmosphere. As the roar of the engines grew louder, the serene silence of the motel was shattered, replaced by an oppressive tension that seemed to seep into every corner. Tyson looked out the window and saw a dozen bikers coming down from their motorcycles, their boots crunching on the gravel as they positioned themselves around the motel like predators stalking their prey. Razor's presence at the center of the group was unmistakable. His dark leather jacket glistened in the early light, and his sharp, calculating eyes scanned Tyson. The once tranquil motel now resembled a battlefield on the verge of eruption. A dozen bikers, armed and ready for revenge, rushed at Tyson. Razor had arrived in person, his presence instilling fear and respect in his men. When Tyson emerged from his room, Razor greeted him with an icy smile. "You made a mistake contacting my team," Razor said, his voice calm but deadly. "Now you will pay." Tyson looked around the group, his sharp mind already calculating his next move. "I don't want any trouble, but if you bring it, I'll stop it." Razor laughed, coldly and without malice. "We'll see about that." The ensuing battle was brutal and chaotic. At first, the gang's numbers and weaponry gave them the advantage, but Tyson's skill and tenacity turned the tide. Realizing that brute force would not be enough, Razor tried to outmaneuver Tyson, using bikers to wear him down. But Tyson's stamina and strategic thinking took over. One by one, the bikers fell until only Razor was left. In the final skirmish, Razor pulled out a hidden firearm and pointed it at Tyson. Before he could pull the trigger, Tyson disarmed him with a swift kick of his foot, sending the gun flying. Razor found himself on the ground with Tyson towering over him. "This ends here," Tyson said, his voice full of calm authority. "You and your team will leave this city, or next time you won't." Razor, defeated and humiliated, nodded. The remaining bikers helped him to his feet, and they rode away, finally ending their terror. As the sun set, Tyson found himself on the open road again. This time the horizon seemed brighter, and the world seemed a little safer. The small town had been freed from the power of fear through the courage and determination of one man. Though Tyson did not seek recognition, his act left an indelible mark and was a reminder that even in the darkest of times, justice can prevail. An endless road stretched before him, but Tyson's journey was far from over. The incident with the Wolf Gang had stirred something deep within him, a sense of purpose beyond his own survival. As he drove, thoughts ran through his mind of the towns he was passing through, and each one had its share of injustice. Tyson knew he couldn't fix everything, but he was determined to make his point wherever he could. In the distance, the faint glow of another city showed on the horizon. For now, Tyson would rest, but his story, like his journey, would continue. Wherever there is injustice, there will be him, a fighter in and out of the ring, standing up for what is right and never backing down.